As you know, Harvey Weinstein was the most powerful man in Hollywood, and now he faces a possibility of life in prison over allegations of rape and sexual assault. During this dramatic trial, the courtroom has been stacked with so many famous people, Rosie Perez among them, coming in wanting to see how justice will play out in this. Weinstein says he's innocent, that these allegations were around consensual sex. He faces 5 felony counts: first-degree rape, third-degree rape, criminal sexual act in the first degree, predatory sexual assault. The list goes on and on. Criminal defense attorney Julie Rendelman has been covering the case for the Law and Crime Network. She joins us now. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Listen, this case is about power, Me Too, but it is also the court of public opinion and then what a real jury says here.
Right.
You've been watching it. What's been the headline that you think when these jurors go in together, they'll be remembering?
There's so many headlines when it comes to this case. And I think when we start to talk about this, I think many of you aren't going to like what I say when I say that I think that the jury is going to have a problem convicting him. And I think a lot of people think that.
I don't think people don't. Like, they just want to know why that is. You know what I mean?
That's true. And, but I do think that there are people, in the world that kind of want to see him convicted for all the things he did. And I think from the start, I think many people have to realize the following. The prosecution's case was always going to be an uphill battle. And everyone kind of knew that, but in a sense, they had to bring
Why would it
case.
be an uphill battle? Because it is what they refer to as he said, she said?
Exactly. And remember, this involves 6 witnesses, 2 complaining witnesses. One was Mimi Halle, who was an aspiring actress. Another was Jessica Mann. Both claim that Harvey Weinstein sexually abused them at one in 2006 and one in 2013. Here's the problem. The problem is, number 1, they didn't go to the police right away. Number 2, there's no DNA. I know a lot of jurors like DNA and scientific evidence. We don't have that in this specific case.
But that's what you call assault acquaintance rape. And when they've talked about these women not going forward, it's been no secret. My original partner to produce this show was Harvey Weinstein. I didn't know him personally, knew him a grand total of maybe 6 weeks before all of this unfolded. Nevertheless, I knew his power, and his power was intimidating. And when you would go in the room with this guy, and I've been in the room with him, people bowed down to him because he had power. So if you're an actress with no power, it is likely you would not tell somebody.
By the way, I agree with you, and one of the things that you have to realize that came out in the jury is they called a witness, they called a doctor who explained why it is. You have to realize that rape victims come in very different shapes and sizes, and they behave very differently depending on their own experience. Everyone reacts differently, and so they brought in a doctor to explain that. The problem is one of the issues, I think, for at least the 2 main witnesses is they continued a relationship with him. And they didn't just continue a relationship, they had a very romantic, some of them had one of them at least continued to have a romantic relationship.
Specifically, the defense for Harvey Weinstein uncovered emails.
Correct.
Where there was back and forth flirtation. How would you describe it?
I would say flirtation. I would say also one of them continued to have a romantic relationship with him.
What do you mean by romantic? Are you saying sexual?
They continued to have a sexual relationship with him. So they said on the stand, I had consensual relationships with him at certain times, and I had an experience in which he raped me. And we have to realize something when it comes to this. People marry someone, and they can be raped by their husband.
I remember the law. There used to women who were in marriages were not protected because there was the thought way back when that a wife could not be sexually assaulted by her husband. We now know that is just simply not true, and women have greater protection. But in this case, when you have jurors who are trying to weigh the evidence, we're still trying to, as attorneys, explain what this all means.
Exactly, and I think, it's difficult for a jury. It's difficult enough in the case we talk about the husband and wife where the wife claims rape. Yeah. It's even harder when we come to this gray area where they had a relationship. I think Jessica Mann was probably the most interesting witness because she was so passionate about how he had manipulated her. But I think the jury's going to have a lot of trouble finding him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's the big word, beyond a reasonable doubt.